Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your man Cat from Cat Fitness. Welcome to another episode of Health Matters Radio. Today, we have an amazing guest. We have can I call you the CEO of Plant-Based Partners?
Sure, yes, sir.
The CEO, Jay, the CEO
Sounds
of Plant-Based Partners in the building. Now, Jay has been an educator for the last 2 decades, right?
Yes, sir.
20 years in the game.
Yup.
Yeah.
Right about. Yup.
Give or take.
Always, yes, sir. But always a student, though. Always a student.
Oh, you got to be a student.
Forever a student.
Forever a student to be the teacher.
Yes, sir.
Pass on the knowledge. So today, Jay, I want to talk about all the amazing things that you're doing out here in the community, inspiring others to have more education in the urban communities about this plant-based lifestyle. And, coming from a Filipino background, how hard of a transition that may have been initially, because, the Filipino diet is, meat and a little bit more meat at the end of the day.
Yes, sir. It's flesh central, man, for sure.
Yeah. So how long ago did this journey start for you?
It's been since about 96, 95, 96.
Before it got trendy.
Yeah, before
in the last couple of years.
Before there was like Jay-Z and Beyonce or promoting it, or there was a Afro vegan, or there was already indigenous peoples doing it. But when we were doing it, it was just it was new.
It was new to.
It was new to folks.
Yeah.
And the culture and the peoples were, they was like, what the heck is that?
Because I'm pretty sure in the mid 90s, not too many people in the urban community, the hood, was talking about being plant-based or being vegan, or even probably knew what the word vegan was.
Right.
So what was that like, the initial days when you guys were like figuring out how to convert from this highly processed meat diet over into, this plant-based journey that you guys have developed now?
For sure. So the transition is, I like to call it, because people get scared when we say convert, right? But the transition of turning plant-based and vegan, from those two different lenses, from the culture of being a Filipino, an immigrant, and immigrating to the States, but also from being
So you're born in the Philippines?
Born in the Philippines, straight up third world slums, third world hood, and then moved to the town here in Oakland. That was like the first world hood.
Yeah.
So there were some changes, but there were a lot of similarities, right? And for me personally, one of the reasons I made that transition was, aside from many different reasons, one was just seeking a better way of looking at life, because being exposed to so much hardcore poverty and violence and all that stuff, I felt like, there's got to be something different.
Yeah.
Right?
Got to be something better.
Yeah, and I felt like I wanted to, as I mentioned to you before, I wanted to water myself from the root instead of the leaf, right? So, and I felt like the diet was something that did that for me.
Yeah.
I felt refreshed.
So, growing up in the Philippines, what was like your typical day? Like, what did you guys have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner out there, man?
Oh man, I mean, really, I've been there like a third of my life, but I grew up my early parts of my life there, and just like when we came here, man, just straight up, as I mentioned before, it was like straight up hot dogs and eggs and rice for breakfast, and it's like Spam, whatever it was, we just pack it on, because the Philippine diet is, we've have a lot of colonial past, from
a lot
Spain.
Of mixed influences from around, whoever was colonizing.
Right.
The
so
at that
the
time.
Philippines was colonized by the Spaniards, and then America, a little bit of the Japanese. So all those cultures had an impact on our food.
Yeah.
And so our indigenous way or indigenous practice of eating kind of shifted when these kind of these oppressions happened to our folk, to our people, and it changed our diet, right? So it made our diet heavy centered on animal products and animal based, right? Which is part of the reason in the Pan-Asian community, from the Vietnamese, Thai, Japanese, Chinese, Filipinos have the highest disease rate, cancer, obesity.
Yeah.
You know,
High in sodium.
we up there.
Yeah.
You know, that's that colonized, food. You know,
Yeah.
and which is why this is one of the reasons I do the work, decolonizing our diets. You know.
Man, so what changed when you came from the Philippines over into Oakland, California? Like,
Right.
did the diet pretty much stay the same, or did you kind of like now you're on like a McDonald's?
Yeah,
Burger King?
yeah. Woo, boy, the
Dollar
fries,
menu hype.
the
Yeah.
fries is hella good.
Uh,
And them chicken nuggets was calling. You know, food is convenient and cheap in the United States, right? Where it was like I would see cats fight for apples in the Philippines, some young kids because they've never seen an apple before.
Wow.
You know, and extreme poverty in these parts of the world, right? So food here was a culture shock, you know, like, oh shit, now
It's
we can eat it.
everywhere.
Yeah, and it kind of messed up my people in my family members, which is now suffering through a lot of ailments because of eating that diet and staying on that diet, right? So now food became cheaper. That tweaked something in the psychology. So like now food's easier.
Yeah.
Now we were struggling to have food.
Yeah.
Now we could just buy food, and the food that we're getting is super unhealthy for us, right?
And I think that's a huge problem, especially with a lot of people that migrate to the U.S. because in a lot of these third world countries and everything, sometimes it's hard to get the meat and other resources. So they do eat a lot of lentils and beans in their average diet, and then they come here and it's so easily accessible
Right.
to all levels, all cultures, and it's like, man, this is a delicacy back where I'm from.
Right.
Now I get here, I can have this 3 times a day.
Yeah.
I'm gonna indulge.
Yeah,
you
totally.
know?
And that mentality allows us then to start being a little greedy.
Yeah,
We start
exactly.
throwing down a little bit
Yeah.
too much in our mouths, right? So I think all of that does affect the mentality and how we eat, and which is why it's really important to understand, right? To understand what you're eating, and that was not easily accepted in my culture when we first started
Transitioning.
Yeah. And shout out to my brother, No Worries Vegan. He's started this catering company that became a restaurant and a food truck, and is always in transitioning in
But
many
you were right
forms.
there in the grind of things with them, right?
Yeah. We transitioned being vegan almost around the same time, and so we were support our support system, and I would cook with him, but it was a project based out of a high school when he was attending Oakland High School. So when he was still a student, he made this business project idea that he then carried along because while we believe in the work and we believe in the food. Right?
Yeah.
So when we first transitioned and started doing this food, and taking it outside into catering and as a business, then we were in the beginning 20 years ago, highly criticized by our own people.
Yeah, I could only imagine.
Yeah, I mean, there's a small group and pocket of folks that were our partners, and that was supporting us. Hence, plant-based partners, that really continue to support us. But the majority of our own people that didn't know and wasn't aware would criticize us. I got stories about setting up in the farmers market in Union City, which is predominantly Filipino, like 6:30 in the morning, and it'd be raining, and our grand elders, our grandparents, not our grandparents, but grandparents in the community would come in, and some would be like, "Oh, this is good," and some would be like, "What is this? This is not Filipino food."
Yeah,
and that was like.
That was a dagger to the heart at that time.
As a young, especially my brother's a young entrepreneur, young chef, but also for me, that's because I'm, believe in the work and believe in the food, right?
Yeah.
And, so it was heavily criticized in the beginning, but again, things changed as time went on. And
what was one of the first dishes that you came up with? Like, did you guys try to, mimic everything?
Know what? Shout out to my mom right quick, because that just reminded me, like, none of this would have been, would have happened because of my mom. My mom's not a vegan or vegetarian, but she was the one that was cooking for us, And we actually had beef when I first transitioned, because she felt like, I've been feeding you for 20 years, now you're not going to eat my food, you know. And we clashed, and then eventually, once she understood and we made amends and I brought her to education, she understand, right? So the reason I bring up moms is because moms is the one that helped bring the idea into fruition, because we weren't eating her food, and we would go to restaurants together and we would tear up some shit out of, excuse my French, but tear up some food out of a vegetarian restaurant. She'd be like, "Oh, you like that? I can do that."
Yeah,
you know,
I can do it better.
Yeah, I can do it better. You know? So we introduced her to the plant-based proteins, and then she went to town. She went ham, and she
put mom's touch on it.
Right, and then that's what gave birth to the idea that my brother was like, you know what, let's do that. And I was like, hell yeah, because we was experimenting and cooking it, and I was already transitioning into the plant-based diet.
So who's the guinea pigs at first besides you and your brother? Was it like other people in your family members that were coming over for dinner and stuff like that? And you guys like, hey, try this real quick. Try this.
Yeah.
Or like friends from the community?
No. You know what? Luckily, just like we were heavily criticized by our community in the beginning, including the Filipino people and Filipino American folks, not all of them, but some of them, also from cats from the hood, you know. However, you know, we were also blessed that we had a few homies, a few partners that was actually looking like us from the hood, brown and black folk, that was also believed in the diet, right, and the lifestyle. They were also open and curious to it, right? So that's what helped us and strengthen our foundation, that it wasn't, for me personally at least, that it wasn't just me, right? That it wasn't just me and my brother, that it was friends in the community, close friends, you know, that was like, yo, we messing with this vegan stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and they looked like me. I was like, whoa, what?
Yeah. We talking about Oakland in the 90s.
Straight town vegans, hashtag town vegans. Like, you know, in middle school and high school, that there was a couple of cats that were riding. So they were our guinea pigs. Yeah. We would cook some food, you know, and we would let them try it. And it wasn't even before the business, the Filipino Vegan, No Worries, that my brother's business, and we were a part of his family. It was just us, you know, like replicating some of the dishes, regardless of which culture, and making them vegan and veganizing them.
So you was making like the vegan burgers and just...
Yeah, I mean, not from patties straight up. We wasn't out there picking and grinding the vegetable and planting it, and you know, but we would look into how to season certain patties. However, you know, for the level 5 vegan community folks, we would also make some
sprouted patties.
Yeah, you know, or some dishes that were non-processed. There were processed plant proteins, right? They were just like natural plant proteins, like chickpeas or lentils or beans, like you mentioned, right? So, and which brings us to the point where veganism is not new. Plant-based practices is not new. This stuff is indigenous. You got people from Asia and Africa that were eating lentils and beans. This was not nothing new. And, you know, so for a lot of us who feel like it's new, even though for me, who people will consider a veteran in the lifestyle or in the diet, man, there's many people that came before us, and we should honor and respect these ancestral practices, you know, and these indigenous cultures. I mean, sure, folks hunted, you know, but it wasn't at this mass production level that
they weren't killing 10,000 chickens a day, you know,
and which is affecting, you know, the planet and the climate, and affecting the labor and the pollution that's going on to the earth. You know, all of these lens and all of these, you know.
It wasn't driven by profit.
Yeah. You know, and even that was just like for the privilege, as a rite of passage, or as a way to survive, right?
Exactly.
And
if the crops didn't come in, maybe we got to kill a chicken or a goat.
You know what?
And to survive.
And that's different.
The wintertime, you know?
That's different. That's like surviving versus like eating so we can just and eating and not be thoughtful about what we're putting in the body, also, but how that food is affecting everybody across the spectrum, you know?
Exactly. You know, it's funny because we're talking a little bit about the history of, you know, different cultures and survival, right? And if we just had to think about it from a logical standpoint, right? If I'm over here and I have trees like apple trees and whatever, and I have abundance of it, you know, what's making me want to go hunt that buffalo or go chase down this animal that puts my life at risk? You know, versus me just having to pick something off a tree and just eat it. You know, the real fast food.
Right, the real fast food.
The real fast food, right?
Live food too.
And that's what, at one point in my personal journey, I just had to look at it from a common sense point. It was like, man, you know, if we look at it, I could understand why certain people became fishermen if they were traveling and they were exploring different parts of the world and they ran out of their rices or beans and you're in the middle of the ocean. Of course you have to survive and you're going to catch something, and then you get this skill set that you might take back to the tribe and say, hey, we learned this. We almost died, but guess what we learned while we were out there? We caught some of these animals in the sea.
Life for life.
Yeah, we caught some of these animals in the sea. We grilled them up real quick and it was edible and we survived, right? Now, versus, like you said, something that, you know, somebody's just trying to make a mass amount of profit and just, you know, destroying the earth as it comes in. So I'm looking at it like this: we have to get back to the root of who we are as a human species, right? Like, if you think about it, we always talk about it costs so much to eat healthy, right? But if we're growing it in our backyards, if you're the person in the neighborhood that has the plum tree, the apple tree, the oranges, and I have the lemons, the avocados, and we're all sharing as a community and coming back together as one and saying, hey, you know, we don't have to look to these mass corporations to feed us. Because guess what? If we rely on them to feed us, who has control of our lives at the end of the day? When they want to shut down the machine, where do we go to get our food?
Right.
What are we going to do?
Yeah.
You know, we got to think about that too. We got to learn some of these basic skills that have been lost with some of our ancestors on when to plant the seeds and when to be ready to turn the soil for the vegetables and everything.
Right.
Back to the simplicity of things.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, and doing those practices reconnects us with the earth, right? However, you know, the way the world is going, you know, it's like everything, you know, they're trying to automate pretty much everything, right? And I think it's good to, how can we exist where the technology's still there, but we're using it in a different way, right? So not everybody know where their food comes from. You ask certain young people, they think food comes from McDonald's, a Safeway, you know what I mean? So it's and
everything goes in a microwave,
right?
And it's done in a minute.
Yeah, because that's the society we live in. You know, like everything, you just take a pill for everything. You know, everything is instant, right? Instant everything.
Instant gratification,
right? So
instant bill to the hospital.
Yeah. So, but we live in that time, and you know, the key is how do we exist in that time while creating a pathway for people to be healthy, right, and give them the information to be healthy. Right, so and part of that is education, doing education work, giving food, allowing food to and sharing food, breaking bread with folks, right, and I think those things coexist, right, which is why it's really important that we bring not only light in terms of awareness to the world, but also support it with a good ass vegan food. You know what I mean? Like, I came from a time where vegan food was like 20 years ago, it was like tasting like, you know, fabric or, you know, like cardboard.
So what was one of the first recipes that you kind of taught yourself, or what was like your go-to back then when you first transitioned?
Potato chips.
Right? French fries.
You know, because you're trying, you know, you're not blessed with everything, but what I did was I educated myself and I needed to practice, right? So it did start off like, oh man, because I built a foundation on learning about this practice or lifestyle based on health reasons, environmental reasons, spiritual reasons, you know, but I wasn't fully equipped with the skill set to make good vegan food yet, right? Yeah. So yeah, I say potato chips, but as I really believed in the food and the reasons why we should be eating like this, then it allowed me to stretch out and be creative, right?
Yeah.
And also coming from the town, Oakland, the Bay Area, where there's so many different cultures and ethnic backgrounds, and those are mostly my friends. We started experimenting with food from their culture, my culture, and then that
cross mingling.
Yeah, and that breaking bread, it wasn't as alien no more. You know, Jay's not like the weird hippie Filipino white dude or whatever. Like, he's hippied out, right? He's like, oh, I see what he's trying to do here, you know. And then, if that encourages other people to do the same, then that's dope, you know. So I would say American food was my first experiment with going vegetarian, plant-based. You know, veggie burgers, veggie sandwiches, you know, and then going back to the different culture and experimenting with that. And then when I started doing the work in the schools with my students, which are predominantly youth of color.
I was gonna, you know, use that as a transition. So you've been within the schools for 20 years now. I've been
working education at different places in education for 20 years. Yeah.
Okay. And when did you see the opportunity to use it as a way to educate the youth on what they're putting into their body? When was that moment that you had that aha moment where you're like, oh man, I need to really, you know, use this platform that I've been developing over the years to kind of educate the youth on what they're putting in their bodies?
So I do a program called Youth Cooks in a few high schools, and also part of I join other co-ops or other organizations, like shout out to Youth Food Project. I do work at different various schools, and I integrate culinary skills and plant-based practices, you know. And even working with recently juvenile justice and systems impacted youth, and bringing food justice work through with them. And I think that's just one of the main important things about the work in terms of making people healthier, but also making the planet more sustainable, right? And I felt like by doing that work, I got to integrate all the skills that I learned cooking for my mom and my brother, and working in restaurants in my life. I got to utilize those skill sets and my youth development work and integrated them with working with young people and honoring their stories, honoring their cultures, and how they relate to the food, right? And my students are either systems impacted youth, predominantly brown and black kids, or immigrant youth, which is multicultural from all parts of the world, and then kids from my community in the hood, right? So I have to make the not just the food, but the content that I'm delivering relatable, accessible, and most importantly.
Do you tell them initially that they're going to be having plant-based or vegan food, or is it something that you let them try?
I'll do both. Yeah. You know, I think one of the main things to bring people together is always food, right? Yeah. And no one's going to turn down a fruit or a vegetable if it's cooked well in a dish, even if it's in a meat dish, right? But food and people are brother and sisters. They always connect, right? So I come in and bring some food, and then I let them know, you know, and for the most part,
what's the reaction?
Oh man, for the most part, kids straight up resist this, boy. But and not just kids, adults, you know, not just adults. The system is resistant for something like this, you know, and that's connected with everything from companies, corporations, politicians, you know. But we can go there later.
I was gonna say, it's so interesting how so many people are, I would say, just brainwashed on feeling like they have to have some kind of meat or dairy in every single meal of the day. You know?
That's crazy.
Like how powerful that marketing scheme was, where it's like milk does a body good.
Well, that's all marketing. That's all, you know, and that's all documented. You know, like where all of these corporations put money in the pockets of politicians to lobby, right? That's why burgers are 99 cents, because governments are subsidizing McDonald's and all that for them to make these products that cost lots of money, lots of resources, does lots of damage to the planet, and then they do it for cheap.
Exactly.
But at the same time, they grinding up the farmers that are growing vegetables, like they putting them through loopholes, and and making sure they're having a hard time, and everything is monocrop, and a lot of the things that we're producing that are monocrop, like either corn and soy, instead of feeding that to people who are homeless or people that are in extreme poverty, which would solve the world issues, right, around hunger, we feeding that and fattening up cows.
Exactly.
And chickens.
Yeah.
So that's all bad. That's
and pumping full of steroids.
And there's drugs in them. And when the animals are stressing out, the drugs and the stress that's coming out of their bodies are going into the flesh that the people are eating. Exactly. So the people are eating the drugs and the toxins that the distress animal went through, right? Which is then connected to our younger kids developing faster because there's drugs in the food. Yeah. So they're like developing, they're growing hairs and breasts and quicker, exactly. We're treating our kids like the animals. That's not right. You know what I mean?
And I tell people this all the time, like from the era that we grew up, like you might have seen people overweight, but nowadays you see more people morbidly obese. Like you're seeing more of the 500, 600 pound people. I don't remember growing up and seeing too many people in that 500, 600 pound range.
Right.
And like when you go outside, it's common these days. And it's like, wow. And these people are, usually eating some kind of meat-based. Like I've never seen an overweight plant-based person. Yeah. Like, morbidly obese. You could be chubby. You could be.
I like them. We like them all sizes. Shout out, no fat shaming. Chubbies are cute too.
But you're not gonna see somebody on a plant-based diet that's morbidly obese for the most part.
Right.
Especially if they're not just a junk food vegan that's eating a whole bunch of Oreo cookies and French fries and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So that's another no-brainer for me, right? If I know I can eat this predominantly diet, and my body's going to stay healthy as long as I stay away from the processed food, shouldn't that be like a light bulb?
No, because we don't want everybody. It lose profit for all of these corporations for you to be aware and conscious, right? So they try to dumb everybody down by giving us these this false information about what we should what we should eat, right? So the work goes back into the education and the community work, building people and bridging people together, right? But if we don't do it compassionately, right, then it'll turn people away from the movement or the diet or the lifestyle, right? So it has to be meeting people where they're at. It has to connect to them culturally. It has to be culturally appropriate for them, whether they're immigrant or from the hood or from wherever they're from, right? So the delivery, the content's the same, but the delivery have to be different in regards to the audience, and then we got to bring them education that is balanced out with good food, right? Otherwise, you're talking all this talk and you're preaching to folk and you're scaring them away, because plus the food that you're bringing ain't even all that good, right? So it's like,
you want me to give up
that shit?
You want me to give up everything that I love for this?
Right. So we're blessed that we're in a time that vegan food is evolving and people are becoming more conscious, and there's books and documentaries and people are becoming more aware, but it's not enough. There's still tons of toxins and emissions going into the air. There's still the act of killing and murder, which might not be for human to human, but we're doing it to animals, which is still producing this energy of death, which is connecting to all the wars, I believe, right? There's still all of these things that are that needs to be mitigated, right? Like the climate, right? So even though 2019 the burgers are good, we can't stop that, right? And it's really important why athletes use the platform to be vocal, celebrities use the platform to be vocal, and that's what we use. That's what I use as an educator, as a tool to educate young people with, right? Because now, back in the days when I first went plant-based and vegan, everything that represented that was either either white and or hippie or too nerdy,
something that nobody would relate to in the hood.
Yeah, not my peoples. We would not connect, or like super smart folk that's knowledgeable about why this diet is important, right? So,
or the snobby, it was a more snobby kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's
so
like okay, that's what they do. This is not what we do, type thing.
So it's important then to, when these celebrities or athletes play a role, and then also looking for information about how it was practiced in indigenous ways. Then you bring that in front of young people, right? So the young Latina will hear better if they're if it's Cesar Chavez or Dolores of that are also vegetarians, or to the young black kid who instead of bringing in people that look like him, whether it be John Sally, who's a vegan, or Afro vegan Brian Terry, or DJ Kavum, right? So now the education is easier because there might still be some resistance, but now it's being delivered by people that look like them and sound like them, right? So, and I think education is what's going to help people be more intrigued and take a step into practicing the diet and staying on the diet, right? Because if it's based on just emotion, because this article that they read and they feel like they're too fat, and then they're basing it on their emotions. But if they ground their evolution around and being educated, and then it's something that inspiring to them, then people are more likely and more open to trying out something that's vegetarian, and then maybe if they like it, they can stay and do it more. Exactly. So regardless if it's not 7 days a week, man, if you're down to do it 1 day a week,
let's
go.
Step. Yeah, it's a huge
let's
step.
Go. I love you.
And I think what's so funny is that how you put it out there. Some people say that person that does it once or twice a week, that's cutting back the meat, they'll downplay that.
Right.
You're like, oh, you're not no true vegan, or you're not plant-based, or whatever the case may be. And it discourages people because not everybody can stop cold turkey. And I believe that, I work with clients all the time to help them make that transition. And one of the things is when they say, oh man, I've been doing good, but I accidentally, had some cheese on something, or, I had whatever. I'm like, okay, well, you had it. Now let's move on.
Right.
Yeah. Not shaming them.
Right.
For like, what are you doing? You're destroying. You're going back.
Right.
And making them feel like they're that everything that they have accomplished wasn't worth that one moment that they made a mistake. Because none of us, 90% of the people, well, 95% of the people that I know currently that's plant-based or vegan wasn't born vegan. This is something that they learned over time, and they got education, and now this is the particular lifestyle that they choose to do. Right. You know what I'm saying? And if we treat more people like that, remembering like how it may have been for us when we first started, and helping them through the transitions when they have questions or need more education or recipes or whatever the case may be, so they can be successful, then I feel like a lot more people would want to kind of convert over. I mean, well, not convert, but be open to the lifestyle.
Yeah, and that's important, having that kind of perspective on things, Yeah, Ben, there's one thing I do want to bring up. Is like there's a lot of trauma in food, and just like Filipino culture Filipino food has been impacted by Spanish colonialism and America, right? Same with other cultures, right? And a lot of people are coming from that place where they feel like, hey, this is tradition, right? And to you, you're like challenging tradition, right? And it's like, so a lot of people will be defensive or feel guilt even if they have the knowledge. So it's really important to have the lens of compassion, right? That's
Exactly.
what all vegans are supposed to be talking about, right? Aside from the health, environment, and physical benefits and environmental benefits, that it's supposed to be about love, right? It's supposed to be allowing people to live, or animals to live, or whatnot. So really, if people are traumatized, then we have to approach food and approach supporting their education with that lens, right? Meaning, hey, I gotta be supportive to my clients, man.
Mm-hmm.
You had cheese, all good. Don't even trip. Get it going. Now you gotta work out harder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you being the real model, they'll have something to work up against. And then you tell them that, like, you know what? When you're ready, you do it, right? And then you could be the inspiration to the next folk.
Exactly.
So coming in with that lens, and same thing with when I'm doing this work with communities, especially the elders, we got to also have that same lens, right? And really just showcasing by being open and listening, right? And also being able to push a little bit, right? Even though it's tradition, that's why I feel like what my brother did and my family did with No Worries was very important, because we helped push the conversation about what is tradition. Because here we are utilizing plant-based protein, taking out the meats in traditionally Filipino dishes,
Yeah.
right? And so now people are like, hey, this doesn't look like chicken, but it's good, right?
Yeah.
So we can have that conversation, like, okay, it's still tradition to eat our cultural dishes, the flavor, but we're going to take out the meat this time, and this time, and this is just for this dish, and this is for right now, this meal. I'm not saying you got to be like this 7 days a week, 3 times you eat a day, or twice, or 7 times, however many times you eat a day. I'm saying this meal right here. Yeah.
Be present in this
right,
moment.
Right. And then if you want to go eat a fat burger when you leave, bounce. All good, but more likely they'll be the ones coming back later and be like, hey man, your dish is good. I had a burger. That just made me feel a little heavy. So that's cool, so not forcing people, but just being there to support folk, but also introducing food and the awareness and then being just a guide. You're not there trying to, I'm the vegan king of the world. You're just like, man, I'm just helping you, point you to the right direction.
Yeah, most definitely. And I tell people they have to always find who they truly are within themselves, because say something, for instance, I always give this example is, if I like avocados as a healthy fat, right? And then you're transitioning, you're like, but I hate avocado. Okay, well, avocado doesn't work for you. I'm not going to force you to try something or tell you this is the only way you can get a healthy fat. Right. We have to find out. I don't have to give you, but I give you a list of options, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, well, I do like that. I like that. Okay, and this is how you utilize it for your particular diet. You know what I'm saying? And I think some people currently, as a trend, are trying to do what other people do. You know what I'm saying? So if somebody's following plant-based partners and they say, oh, well, that's how Jay does it, I'm assuming that's how you have to become a vegan, or you have to become plant-based. That's the only way. When it's, no, you find your flavor, your groove, your lane, and make it work for your lifestyle.
Yep.
And that's how you succeed.
Right.
Don't copy what Cat Fitness does. Don't copy what Jay does.
Right.
Find what works for you.
Yeah. And encouraging people to do that, right? It's like stylizing it. It's like learning something, learning a writing, learning cursive, but you putting some little flavor to your cursive writing, right? Yeah. So totally support that idea of encouraging people to do it their way, right?
Yeah.
But grounding themselves in the education, which is really important, right? Like, go out there and Google that stuff.
Exactly.
Google benefits of a vegan diet. Yeah. Google celebrity vegans. Google vegan athletes. Find sources of inspiration that can help you elevate your and strengthen your belief or your value of I want to eat healthy for me so I could be a better human being for my families and community. And I want to eat healthy to benefit humanity and animals, etc. Dot dot dot. Whatever it is for you.
Jay, I'm gonna interrupt you for one
Yes,
quick
sir.
second.
Yes,
We're
sir.
gonna have to take a commercial break.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I'm just running my mouth, bro. I'm so sorry.
It's all good. So, taking a commercial break. This is 89.3 KPFB, Berkeley, and you're listening to Health Matters Radio. We are in the studio today with Jay from Plant-Based Partners,
Yeah,
which is educating us on the lifestyle of what it has been to be a vegan Filipino in the community for the last 20 years. Jay, so you were just saying to everybody, essentially, you know, we have so many tools these days where you can go on Google, look things up for yourself. Like, what are some things? Do you still like look things up on Google? Being a plant-based vegan for the last 20 years, or you kind of just have your set routine that you kind of follow, day in and day out?
Are you talking about what, like some kind of practices?
I mean, just like even recipes or
okay.
anything. Do you still Google stuff?
Oh, hell yeah, hell
Okay.
yeah. You know, I think learning is that's something that we do is our human right. You know, education is our human right. So it's always great to be growing and learning. So even though, I've been practicing the diet for a handful of years, few handful of years, I'm always want to know and get better, right? And there's always places to honor other people's culture or food, which is really empowering. It's like, I'm gonna give you a shout out by learning about your dish, and then I'm gonna try to replicate it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always learning, and that's simple to just go out there and look. There's so many individuals making recipes, and the education is also there, right?
So what's your favorite recipe? Like, what's your, like, if you only had one meal to have,
Right,
your last meal
That's
on
so
earth,
funny.
what would it be?
Does it have to be Filipino food? It could be anything.
Anything that you choose to eat.
Let's see. This gotta have to be something with some fried rice.
The
rice, bro. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to stereotype myself. I know I'm Asian. I'm Asian and stuff, but the fried rice, man. Throw some protein in there. There'll be some veggie dogs and some ketchup, man. I want that comfort food. You know what I mean? I want that. It was my last day.
You going out with the blast.
I'm about to be gone. Oh man, you better throw some hot water and some cup of noodles that's vegan, vegan cup of noodles, and don't even put it in the bowl, bro. I just leave it in there. And I'll just throw my chopstick and my spoon in there and drink
it. Down it.
Yeah. I mean, but there's many dishes that I love creating with my students, especially because with my cooking program, part of the cooking program is storytelling and hearing their stories and see how they connect with the food. So one of my students from Guatemala or one of my students from China is going to help me cook their dish, and I get to learn the dish, even though I'm inviting them to cook with me.
So they're teaching you one of their traditional dishes.
So I usually cook it with them. I usually pull up a recipe and be like, it's something I'm doing, or I'll ask their parents to come through, right? But I'll do the prep. I'll be like, yo, you gotta tell your parents though.
Have you ever had any pushback?
No, that's what I do. I had to check in with the kids and be like, yo, you gotta tell. Usually my high school students, I talk to them, I level with them, and they get it. Yeah. So I'd be like, yo, you need to tell moms or grandma that we're doing a plant-based version of her mole, okay? Yeah. Or a plant-based version of her tacos, okay? And they're like, all right, all good, because I set it up prior, right? So they either say no or they will, but for the most part they'll come through, and then I'll have them, I'll co-cook with them. I'll set everything up, and then I'll have Abuela tell her story. I'll have grandma tell her story. Have why tacos is connected to her culture, and at the same time we're doing a plant-based vegan version of the tacos. So we're still honoring the tradition, but we're introducing something that's and more sustainable to their health,
Yeah.
right? And I'll bring the health part, and I'll bring one or two data about why it's important for, health wise of why, and then also a data on environment, why it's best practices to do this, right? And then I step back, help cook again, let grandma finish up the story, feed the kids, check them on the attendance, we good to go,
Right.
and then build that in the series. Next week we traveling to China.
Yeah.
Next week we traveling to Vietnam. We ain't going nowhere. We broke. We help us out, rich vegans. Invest in our program, Youth Cooks. Anyway, and then what we'll do is we'll go learn about this kid from China and their noodles, or this kid from Syria and their dish. So honoring people's culture, honoring their voice, honoring their stories, and at the same time inserting health, inserting sustainability, and community, and breaking bread.
Have you ever had a parent, after trying one of their traditional dishes, come back and tell you, like, man, that one dish kind of like changed my life?
Yeah, the parents, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the ones that feel good, because it's not direct, it's through the kid, and there's been a few that, shout out to my brother, as like, from his business, Jay-ar would, like, bring it out to the community, and I would be one of the faces with him, and people mix us up all the time, like, are you Jay-ar? I'm like, no, I'm Jay-ar. You know what I mean? And it's like, I appreciate, he probably doesn't, he's like, I don't want to be under my big brother's shadow all life, So I definitely respect his work, but together, as I support him in the work, and as I help bring my food with my students, and my education with and sharing that, is communities do, just like there was critics, and that's all good, community members do come through and be like, yo, that food was hella good. And then they'll shout us out on IG or somewhere on social media and be like, yo, I remember when the brothers was doing this, shout out to Jay-ar, or to Jay and Jasper, so those little things are super empowering and encouraging for us. We're not out there, we don't have many restaurants or a fleet of food trucks, but we give the food, so, and part of that is we get a lot of family members who are just like hella down with us. They might not be vegan themselves, but they'll eat it and they're like, dude, that's hecka good.
Yeah.
And they're like, Jay-ar was doing that good stuff,
So during the holidays, do you guys, make sure that you bring a couple dishes to the gatherings?
For sure. And I think that's what we all vegans in the family is pushed to do. We don't have to, but usually, people are gonna be like, so what are you gonna eat? What are you gonna eat? Is this anything there for you? Is there's rice for you? There's rice. Like, there's rice, that's it.
You got some lettuce.
There's right. You can lick that leaf right there on the plant. So I think we definitely bring stuff, but I think because people are knowing about who we are and what I do, I'm hella grateful that I have people in the community that are like, yo, Jay, there'll be food there, by the way. There's vegan stuff. They'll have some vegan dishes. So I got friends who will look out, that will look out. And it's not like that all the time. I come to a gathering and not bring anything, and it's all animals. And then I'll just be like, I'll conversate, I'll sit down, I'll grab a plate and put something on there to look like, I'm in the club drinking my beer or whatnot, but I'm in the family gathering, But yeah, of course, there's gonna be some titas or some tias looking like, what is he eating? Is he eating a leaf again? So it's really important that when we go through these events, we bring in some of our creative dishes. We bring in, some of the dishes that we're known for, or some of the dishes that I'm really good at. I'll make some mean ass vegan kebabs. I'll make.
Thanks for bringing them to the radio station today.
I'm so sorry, bro.
We did. How you gonna brag on the mean kebabs and not even, we're sitting here, stomachs rumbling.
I failed. Failed as an educator.
That's an epic fail today. So, what was that moment where you felt like you kind of like people accepted what you guys did, and it was like you had that moment of, yes, it was all worth it, going through all the, adversity that you guys had to face initially?
I don't want to speak for my brother, but for me, that moment kind of always been there, which I feel like helped me in terms of the struggle, of going through those struggles, right, in the initial stages, because we already knew we was doing something new, and regardless how cutting edge we thought we felt, and we thought that this was great for the people and the planet and good for your, it's good in your mouth as well, and your tongue, you know what I mean. I still knew that there was going to be a lot of resistance, but I know I think as time went on, and as we started seeing more folks in the community coming out and being plant-based and being vegan, and also from the Filipino American community, there's like, shout out to Raina from Nick's Kitchen in South San Francisco and Daly City. She's got 2 restaurants. She does Filipino vegan food.
One of my clients told me about that spot.
Amazing food. Gotta go see her. And she's an awesome person, doing that work. And then, we got, Rich Gale, who's a friend of mine that does the YouTube. I Stick Vegan. She's like super like out there on the YouTube space, what I mean? So, and then there's other folks like that are doing it in different levels in my community. Shout out to Sunshine, he's my another Pinay in the community that's doing Filipino food that's vegetarian and vegan. Like, there's people out there that are doing it now, and we're just,
the voice is getting louder.
Yeah, and we're just happy to and no ego about, we were the first and we were the baddest and whatever. We were just happy to be part of it. And just grateful that there's folks out there like continuing it and exposing people to good Filipino vegetarian food and vegan food in general, right? Because that's what it's really all about, that we're all one people, we're all one culture, regardless if you're Black and Chinese or Polynesian or whatnot. Like, we're all one people, and we should be all to break bread together, to where that food is truly from the lens of environmental justice, truly from the lens of food justice, and really all about compassion, right? Because if we're all about loving each other, then we should feed each other food that is the most healthiest for us and the best tasting, right? And as people, and honoring people's dishes and traditions at the same time. So, man. So having that, bringing the food to the community, and also community stepping through, that's my yes. I'm like, there's more people doing it? Yes. Yes. And if they want to give a shout out, sure. But we'll also be down in the back, just quiet, humble,
Have you guys talked to any of these other Filipino chefs of doing any kind of collaborations or?
Oh man, that would be like the Golden State Warriors of Filipino vegan food. Like, they don't want to see that. They don't want to see that, and
it'd be game over, huh?
Yeah, and we'd probably take over, and but
what about a cook-off? What about,
I'm actually working on that. One of the things I was doing with No Worries was, like, aside from cooking at night, when my brother was been there all day, he needed to rest at night. I come in and cook at night. I also help produce events at the restaurant that we had to let go eventually, right? But we would do, I would do this one event called Eat Now, Laugh Later, which is like comedians and my brother doing a cooking workshop, right? And then we're feeding him a 3-4 course meal, and it was people was really feeling that, because here's laughter, right? Laughter is medicine, and then vegan food is medicine, right? So we would help heal. We felt like we was bringing this, cutting edge event where making people laugh, and feeding them. Sometimes the joke might be a little disgusting though, but we work around it, and it was amazing. But yes, bringing people together. I think having an attitude of welcoming and supporting one another. Any community could be competitive, right? Like, those vegans, and and so really just trying our best to like welcome everybody. A competition, like a cook-off, would be dope. It could also be. These also be, nerve-wracking, or people could be nervous. People are doing this for business. Some people are doing this for fun. Some people are doing this for business. I don't want somebody just critiquing my food. So how can we bring people together that is that is, it could be competitive. It could have that lens, that'd be great. But it could also be highlighting which Filipino vegan chef and what they're bringing to the game. Right?
Yeah.
So thank you, Kat. You just gave us an idea.
Yeah.
You're going to help us organize, all right?
Come on.
All right,
I'll be the MC.
For sure. For sure. You definitely blend in. You look Pinoy.
Yeah.
You look like you're one of our Filipino cousins from the South.
Come on, they got the negritos. They got the negritos.
The negritos, that's what I'm saying. From the South, brother. So your people's my indigenous peoples as well. So.
Come on, hand in hand.
Yeah,
so we're getting to the end of the show. It's we want to leave the audience with a couple gems.
Yeah. Sure.
So what are some things like maybe books or documentaries that you can say that really impacted you and helped you through your journey, and some things that really stood out that kind of like, it was like, man, that's like a gem I have to pass on to the community?
I did a lot of the research on my own, right? And sometimes I would go through online to do that, right? So I would get scattered gems everywhere, right? But throughout my transition, and I wasn't vegan from first day to 20 years or whatnot. It was like a slow transition. I was like vegetarian for a few years and then be in and out of vegetarian. And then I finally decided, you know what? Year 4, year 5, I'm gonna just go full on,
Yeah.
So there's like a transition, and part of that transition was knowledge that I would acquire throughout the time, right? And mentioned to you in your blog was like it wasn't just for health reason. It was health reasons, but it was also, and it wasn't just animals or environment, but it was all of that, but it was also spiritual, right? So there was a phase in my life where I was going through this spiritual time as a young adult, young immigrant, young man of color. And I felt like being exposed to so much violence and negativity, I needed to see something different. So the spiritual phase that I was going through at the time kind of like helped me look into practices and individuals that were promoting it or living it, right? So, I looked into things like spiritual teachers, and even though I wasn't of that same faith, even if I wasn't Islam or Buddhist or whatnot, I still will look into these teachers and individuals, right? So there's doctors, there's athletes, and there's celebrities now, right? But those are people that brought me in. But the spiritual phase that I learned from like individuals, for example, there was a book by Elijah Muhammad, Eat to Live. There was this, and that was
what did they talk about like in that book that
kind
of
like,
got your attention?
Food are centered around plant-based, and that fasting is not just to starve yourself, but really it was a way to offer yourself to the Most High, and really instead of like always filling and consuming and taking from the planet, doing your best to give, right? So and then
that's deep.
So fasting was part of that. Food centered around plants, so that's Eat to Live by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Even though I'm not Muslim, I have homies in the community that were Nation of Islam or Black Muslims, so they kind of like brought that up to me. Queen Afua was another lady. She's from I believe New York, where I found her book called Heal Thyself, right? And she was like healing herself from some I believe, I don't remember if it was cancer or some form of ailments, and it was eating centered around plant-based and seeing food as like a spiritual food, right? That we will put in this vessel. So that was one book that helped me. It was a little tiny book, man, because I was like not really into. I had a.
You wasn't reading those 20, 30 chapters.
Yeah, I was struggling.
Novels.
I was a struggling student academically in the hood, right?
Yeah.
So I needed to find ways to get these information, and then also this spiritual teacher, Supreme Master Ching Hai. She had a bunch of practitioners that run some restaurants. And so I would see her book called Immediate Enlightenment, and these were the individuals that were like, reminding me of this ancient practice of compassionate, of thou shalt not kill, or
Mm-hmm.
like all of the other religions at the base core of it before they became religion was about compassion. It's about forgiveness. It's about letting people and things and bring them to life, right? It wasn't about killing or murdering. So those are my foundation, and those are some of the three books that kind of grounded me. And then from there, then I went on and learned about uh, physical benefits, mental health benefits, environmental benefits, right? And it was from documentaries like What the Health is one, but that's fairly new. Earthling is another. Forks Over Knives. There was a bunch of movies, but again, a lot of those movies really wasn't speaking to me at first because they weren't brown faces. They weren't people that looked like me. Um, and then later on, I started to be exposed to more folks of color, immigrants, or people from another place of the world, right? So those were what spoke to me. So I can't really name drop a lot of books and docs because I felt like a lot of it was me seeking it, right? Because I felt like I wanted to really strengthen my core value of why this was something that I'm fully committed to, right? Regardless of the skin I'm in, regardless as a Filipino, as from Oakland, as an immigrant, right? As a human, as a being, I felt like this was my path. This was the best path for me. Now, if I could share it with others and encourage or inspire folk, that's tight, but that's not my goal. My goal is just to share it because of because it's compassionate. It's about love.
Exactly.
It's love based. It's compassionate based. Whether you're in it for the planet, the animals, the people, or whatever, right? And I think that's some of the challenges within the vegan community that some of us see only one lens. Some of us are you just for the animals or what? Well, you're not a real vegan. You're not from the animals. Sorry, my nerdy voice, right? And like, but no, it's also for the animals. But for people like us, for people that look like me, you have to humanize it, right? You have to make it relatable for me and my people and my community, whether it's my partners who are Mexican and blacks as well. Like, it needs to connect with me. So it can't just be the polar bears. It's got to be the Pookie bear that's hanging out in the corners. You know what I mean? So it needs to be humanized. And some people might not understand that because they come from a different background. But I think it's important for us to know where people are coming from.
Exactly.
Right? Even in our own community as vegans, or as Filipinos, or people from the town, or as a multicultural group, right? So knowing where folks are coming from and being understanding and being an ally to them, right?
Man, so much great information. I know we could go at least another hour.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry I'm talking so much.
No, that's great. We got to get you back for episode 2. That's all that means.
Let's do it.
So let our viewers know where they can find you on social media or different platforms you have, your website, all the things that you got going on. Because, I feel like you're bringing a whole different perspective to this vegan, plant-based lifestyle. And like we've been talking since the beginning of this episode, that, people have to go out there and just find something that relates to them and seek out the knowledge for themselves and see exactly how they fall into their own particular lane. So what are some of the places they can find you on IG, Facebook, or what do you got going on?
For sure. I'm on my personal account, Jasper Pugao at IG, but I'm also just started off my blog and our channels. That's Plant-Based Partners. That's partners as in partner, but spelled Patnas. But because we want to be your partner, we want to be your friend and help you transition and guide you, just like my friends and my partners guided me into and to be more conscious and aware of what I put in the body and into the world. So Plant-Based Partners, find us there. Shout out to my brother, No Worries Vegan. You can find him because people mix us up. You might as well find him so you know him and me. But Plant-Based Partners, and and that's on YouTube, and that's on IG, and that's on Facebook. Thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate you.
No, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come hang out with us. Make sure you guys tune into 89.3 KPFB every Sunday at 1 p.m. And make sure that you follow us on our IG page, which is Health Matters Radio. You can find your man Cat Fitness on IG at Cat Fitness 3. You can also find me on Facebook at Cat Fitness. And guess what? We'll see you next time. Have a great one. Peace out.
One.
Go ahead and hit that finish button right there.